though often called the street fighting karate master. Motobu Choki's overwhelming skill earned him a reputation that spread from Okinawa to mainland Japan. His life was, in many ways, a story that reflects the very origins of karate. In this video, we trace the journey of Motobu Choki and explore the legacy he left behind in the world of karate. Motobu Choki was born in 1870 as the third son of Motobu Ochishoshin, head of the Motobu Udun, a noble family in Akahira village, Shuri. The term Udun referred to both royal residences and a title of respect bestowed upon Ryukyuan royalty. The Motobu Udun family descended from the sixth son of King Shōshitsu. As one of the kingdom's high-ranking noble houses, they governed the region that corresponds to present-day northern Okinawa Island. Because the Motobu family was such a distinguished household, Anko Itosu, the great master of Shuri-te, often visited their residence and provided instruction to the eldest son, Motobu Choki. Through this connection, Choki himself began learning Shuri-te under Itosu around the age of 12. As Choki built the foundations of his karate training, he often found himself unable to defeat his elder brother Choi, who was 5 years older. Determined and unwilling to lose, Choki began experimenting with his own methods of training in order to surpass his brother. However, when Choki reached the limits of his self-devised training, he secretly began visiting great Shuri-te masters such as Sokan Matsumura and Sakuma. Under their guidance, he refined his techniques and strengthened his Kyumet skills. In later years, Choki spoke of Sokan Matsumura, saying, "Among the karate masters of modern times, none were as refined and powerful as Master Matsumura. From Matsumura, he learned how to apply strength in kata, how to make use of its techniques, and most importantly, that in Kyumet and real combat one must not be bound by form, but respond with flexibility to the situation." Regarding Sakuma, Choki recalled, "Master Sakuma's teaching was strict, but through sparring practice with him, my karate skills truly improved." In his pursuit of mastery, Choki sought out one renowned master after another, learning from each and continually refining his technique. Around the age of 18, as part of his study of martial arts, Choki visited Yomesu Magi, a renowned Okinawan sumo expert at the time. There, he boldly challenged him to a sumo match, almost by force. Because Choki was the third son of the prestigious Motobu family, Magi could not refuse his request and reluctantly accepted the challenge. But faced with Magi's overwhelming size and strength, Choki was powerless and easily brushed aside. From this experience, however, he gained a new lesson: to devise techniques that could overcome differences in size and strength. Choki also sought instruction from Kosaku Matsumura, the great master of Tomari-te, whose exceptional skill was already widely recognized. One day, during a sparring session with Matsumura, Choki's hand accidentally struck his master's face. Startled, Choki stepped back and apologized. But Matsumura replied, "It's all right, strike without hesitation." Deeply moved by these words, Choki became even more determined, and threw himself into training with greater spirit. Despite his daily training and constant study, Choki once faced a karateka named Kameya in sparring, and found himself completely outmatched, brushed aside with ease. However, through relentless study and training, by the time he was about 23, Choki had developed the strength to completely overwhelm Kameya in return. By this time, Choki's reputation was already well known among the karate practitioners of Okinawa. Yet he never let fame make him arrogant. Instead, he pursued his studies with even greater passion, and began testing his karate in real combat situations. He would often venture into Tsuji the red light district of the time. Whenever he spotted someone who seemed to have martial training, he would deliberately provoke a fight to test his own strength, then incorporate those experiences into his karate. Building on these real combat experiences, Choki also trained alongside Kentsu Yabu, a fellow disciple, and together they refined their kumite skills. Yabu and Choki were close friends, and they often went out together into Tsuji marching. One story from this period goes as follows. One night, as the two were returning from the Tsuji district, they were suddenly surrounded by a group of karateka from Naha. In that instant, when one of them lunged at Choki, he swiftly stepped back and struck with his fist, dropping his opponent with a single blow. Seeing this, the karateka from Naha were struck with fear. One after another, they scattered and fled from Choki. Through countless street fights, Choki had never lost. But at 42, he challenged Ryukyu Tode, a fighter 5 years his senior, and for the first time, he was defeated. Ryukyu Tode was known at the time as a hidden master of great ability within the Okinawan karate world. After this first defeat, Choki is said to have spent the entire night without sleep, reliving the way his opponent had applied each technique, and throwing himself into relentless training. The karate that Choki forged through real combat was sometimes dismissed by other karateka as mere street fighting karate. Though scorned by some, he silenced such criticism with his overwhelming skill and undeniable strength. Later, Choki tried his hand at running a business, including a horse-drawn carriage service. But when these ventures failed, in 1921 he left Okinawa and moved to Osaka to find work. After moving to Osaka, Choki found work as a security guard at a textile mill. It was during this time that he met an Okinawan woman, whom he later married. In 1922, at 52, Choki was in Kyoto when he came across a boxing versus judo exhibition. Learning anyone could enter, he decided to participate. As the match began, Choki spent the first round observing his opponent. Then in the second round, he unleashed a karate strike, dropping the foreign boxer with a single blow. When the details of this match were published in King, a nationally popular magazine of the time, Motobu's name, and the Okinawan martial art of karate, suddenly became known throughout all of Japan. After the match, many people came to Motobu's lodging, seeking instruction in karate. Seizing this opportunity, Motobu organized the Karate Jutsu Promotion Society in Osaka. In 1926, Motobu published Okinawa Kenpo, Karate Jutsu Kumite Edition, karate's first book devoted to kumite. The work introduced his 12 kumite, still recognized as the oldest documented forms of prearranged sparring in karate history. The following year, Motobu moved to Tokyo, where he began teaching karate. In Tokyo, Motobu was supported by Konishi Yasuhiro, a student of Gishin Funakoshi. With his help, a group of supporters formed around Motobu, and he became the first karate instructor at Toyo University and the Ministry of Railways. Around this time, Motobu established his own dojo, called Daidokan, in Koishikawa Haramachi, Tokyo. In 1929, Hiroki Otsuka, another student of Funakoshi, came to train under Motobu. In 1932, Motobu published his second book, Watashi no Karate Jutsu, My Karate Techniques. This groundbreaking work featured step-by-step photos and detailed analysis of Naihanchi kata, his signature form. Motobu placed great importance on the Naihanchi kata. So much so, that other karate masters mocked him, saying he knew nothing else. But in reality, Motobu was well versed in many forms. According to his student Otsuka, he could instantly explain the applications and breakdowns of kata beyond Naihanchi whenever asked. In old Ryukyu, karate masters believed that learning too many kata was unnecessary. The common view was that knowing 5 or 6 forms was more than enough. Motobu shared this same belief. He disliked teaching too many kata, and only on request would he occasionally show pasai or season. But to his students, he insisted that 1 kata was enough. Naihanchi alone. Haranori Otsuka, who learned the depth of Naihanchi from Motobu, once said, "Since ancient times, it has been said that Naihanchi takes 3 years just to perform properly, and even a lifetime is not enough to master it completely." Motobu's stance, whether in kata or in kyumet, was always the Naihanchi stance. In both attack and defense, he would lower his hips and keep his weight evenly distributed on both legs. Because of this view of martial arts, Motobu disliked stances such as cut stance, front stance, or back stance. In his teaching, he never allowed his students to use those stances, not even in kata. Even the famous boxer Piston Horiguchi, a former Oriental featherweight champion, visited Motobu's dojo and trained under his guidance. Horiguchi often asked Motobu many questions about karate. Motobu simply replied, "You can't know the truth until you try it." He then told Horiguchi to strike him directly. Horiguchi threw jabs, straights, and hooks. But each time, Motobu intercepted them, delivering lightning-fast counter-strikes, stopping just short of Horiguchi's forehead. After several such blows, Horiguchi finally gave up, bowed in respect, and left the dojo. After this, the tide of history began to drift toward war. In 1941, as the war intensified, Motobu closed his dojo and returned to his home in Osaka. After staying at his home in Osaka for several months, Motobu returned to Okinawa. But as the war worsened and going back to Osaka became impossible, he resolved to spend his final days in his homeland. And in 1944, at the age of 75, Motobu passed away. Though Motobu was known as the fighting karateka and carried a reputation for violence, in reality, he was gentle in nature and a man of strict courtesy. He had no interest in wealth and refused to take on many students merely to keep his dojo running. Throughout his life, Motobu devoted himself to the study of karate, embodying what true karate should be. By his example, he showed future generations the very essence of the art. Even today, his journey continues to remind us of karate's true origins.